Okay, so this will be the solution for the first of the harder section D programming tasks. So what does it say? The program is to be updated so the user can decide the width and length of each field. You should know from your section A work that at the moment a constant has been used to decide. So because these are constants, the current implementation has the field always being 35 wide, 20 tall, or 20 long. The minimum dimensions of any field will be 2 by 2, and the maximum will be 50 by 50. Create a new subroutine. Let's do that. So we're going to create a new subroutine. Let's do it at the top here. Def new subroutine. Let's match the format of the exam by putting this sort of like comment spacer in. Okay, what does the subroutine need to do to allow the user to input both dimensions? Validate both values before returning them back to the calling point. So similar to what you did before the validation test, we need to get two numbers. Both of the numbers need to be within the range of 2 and 50. We need to print some error messages, etc. So let's copy this out and let's change it. Let's think about the bits that we need, which are the messages. And let's think about a way to do this. So because we want a while loop, and the while loop is going to, well, first of all, let's get the variables. So length is an integer that comes from the input, and the same with, oops, that should have been width. And the same with the length. The length is an integer that comes from the user input. Let's use a new line character because we saw that the user seems to enter on the new line. So let's put a new line after the prompt. And we need to decide when to print, in both cases, invalid input. And the whole idea is we're going to keep printing invalid until the input is correct. So a nice way to do this is to give both variables like invalid values to start off with. So let's make them -1, because then that will ensure that this will run at least once. It's kind of like a repeat until loop, a post condition loop. Let's say while the width is less than 2 or the width is greater than 50, get the width. And hold on a second, that's not going to work, is it? That will always print invalid input. That's not going to be a good solution. All right, let me change my mind about that. Instead, we probably need to ask for the width first. And then only print the error message and get the width again. Ignore what I said before. There is a possible other implementation, but let's do it like this to keep it simple. And the same for the length. So 2 separate while loops because there are 2 separate values. Let's repeat until the length is within the range. And then finally, let's use an F string to print the final values decided by the user. So this is the width by the length. So that should be us completing the subroutine, but we're not going to be able to test it just yet because we need to integrate it within the rest of the program. That's the next bit. Because field width and field length will now change each time the simulation is run, they should no longer be declared as constants. Rename these two named values so they are global variables instead. So let's think about naming conventions. If it's in caps, then it's a constant. These are now not going to be constants. They are going to be just variables instead. So let's change the way that they are named using Pascal case, like the other variables in the program, which I have forgotten to do here. Let's change that. Like I've said in previous videos, it's important to be consistent with the rest of the code, right? So if Pascal case is being used for the variables, then any new variables you make should use Pascal case as well. All right, what do we need to do? Find the initialize field subroutine, which is this one, and make it so the variables are global, as in the width and the field, before asking if the user wants to load a file with seed positions. Call the new subroutine to decide the values of field width and field length. So before the seed positions bit. So that's the seed positions bit. We need to call the subroutine. because this subroutine was a function, didn't make it a function, did we? So let's make it a function so it returns the width and the length. Because it's going to return the two values, when we write it here, we need to assign the function call to the two values. But in this case, we're going to use the kind of global scope names, because what this is actually deciding is the values of the global variables field width and field length. So if I write this statement global, or this declaration keyword global, this will mean change the global variable, the one that was mentioned at the top, and it will be then it will be a change that then affects the entire program. Right, now let's go on to testing. So test your program by creating a new 10 by 10 field and running the simulation for 3 years. Let's see if this works. So let's have a look for Q35. So I'm in my directory on Windows Terminal, and this is my file. So if I run the file, I've got a syntax error. Let's fix the syntax error. Missing bracket from this end, from the end of the line. So important thing to remember here is, even though it's saying the while statement is causing the problem, it's actually because there is no end known to the one before. Let's try run that again. And I didn't save. Let's try run that again. Now we've got another syntax error. Let's have a look. Perhaps you forgot a comma. Okay, sorry, I had the input statement in 4 places. Try again. Maybe let's clear the screen. And now we've got some success. So we want to run the simulation for 3 years, and we want the field width to be 10, 10. And let's say no, and no. So what else do we need to change to make this implementation successful? We'd also now need to alter every other time the constants are referenced in the code. What's the best way to do this? So we should use the tool of find and replace, because we want to say every time field length is mentioned, the constant is now this variable. Let's replace all of the instances. Replace all of the instances. Replace all in this document. Let's try it again, but this time with, well, let's do it again, this time with field width. Get the field width constant and replace it with the new variable. And let's replace all in the document. Let's try the test again, see if it works. 3 years, width of 10, length of 10, nope. And now we've got some success. It might be worth at this point to run the program again and just test the other feature that we implemented, which is the validation. It shouldn't allow me to enter anything above 50. Let's do the edge cases, 51, 1, 2, and then it allows me to do this. So that was it. That was the solution to allowing the field width and the field length to be variable.